Be the NIV version. All right. Romans 11:13-21. I am talking to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles. I make much of my ministry, in hope that I may somehow arouse my own people to envy and save some of them. For if their rejection is reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? If if the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not boast over the branches. If you do, consider this: you do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off so that I could be grafted in. Granted. But they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant, but be afraid. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. So, this is a good section of scripture. Okay, here's what we're dealing with. We are dealing with Romans 11, chapter 11, verse 1 is what this whole chapter is about. Verse 1 asks this question: did God reject his people, meaning the Jewish people? The answer is no. Okay, and this whole passage is an explanation of why God did not reject the Jewish people. The whole chapter is an answer basically to the first question. You could sum it up like that. And so wherever you jump in, you're getting that question answered. Did God reject his people? And the answer is no. And then Paul provides all these proofs and he makes application. So where we're at is verse 16. And I don't want to do a ton of background because last week I basically did all background and we didn't do any new stuff last week. So we touched on verse 16, but we hardly touched it. So where I want to start is right at verse 16. With this little thing. So we're in 11:16. Here's what it says. If the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. Okay, here's what we're dealing with. Starting at verse 11, Paul begins to ask this question: did they stumble to fall beyond recovering? He's talking about the Jewish people. They rejected Jesus. They rejected God's offer of salvation through Christ. They rejected the Messiah, and they fell. Okay? They were waiting for the Messiah. They were waiting for the promised one all through the Old Testament. He comes, and they crucify him. And so Paul says, okay, they fell big time, but did they fall beyond recovery? I'm going to bring it over here. Did they fall beyond recovery? That's the question. And the answer is no. They didn't fall as to not be able to get back up again. And this is supported all through this section of scripture, but specifically if you look with me real quick at verse 25, 11:25, you can see it. He says, I do not want you to be arrogant of this mystery, brothers, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of Gentiles has come in, and so all Israel will be saved. Okay, what that passage is pointing to, and that sums up a lot of what we're going to be looking at right now, but what that passage is saying is that God has put a temporary hardening on the Jewish people, or as Paul says in one of his epistles, a veil is over their minds and their faces when the law is read so that they can't see Jesus. Okay, they're hard. And here's what it looks like. In Romans chapter 1, remember, God let the Gentiles go their own way. It says that he let them indulge in every kind of wickedness. He just let them go. He gave them over to a depraved mind to do what ought not to be done. Now, that was the Gentiles. Now, he's doing the same thing with Israel here. They are stuck on the law. They're stuck on their Abrahamic lineage. They're stuck on all their traditions. They're stuck on the traditions of the elders and the scribes and the Pharisees, like the washing of cups and bowls. And remember, at one time they're like, "What, Jesus, why don't your disciples wash their hands before they eat?" And so it wasn't a germ issue. It was a tradition of the elders of hand washing and washing of cups and bowls and all these extra things added on to the law, which were not what God prescribed, but what men added on to in order to be right with God. Okay, and that is the thing that they're holding on to. And God, just the same as Romans 1, when he let the Gentiles go their own way, now he lets the Jewish people go their own way. Does that make sense? So he allows them to go that way, and in that way, he hardens them. He says, okay, you want to trust in all these things? You want to not believe? In John chapter 5, Jesus says, you will not believe. Same thing in Matthew 23. He says, how I've longed to gather you, talking about Israel, but you will not come to me. Okay? The issue is not he's not stopping them from coming. The issue is they will not come. Okay, don't ever get that twisted. I don't care if you call yourself a Reformed person or a Calvinist or whatever. The issue is never that God is stopping people from coming. The issue is they don't want to come. And you wouldn't want to come either unless God opened your eyes and gave you the desire to come. You'd be right there with him. If he gave you over to your own lusts and desires and your hard heart, which we all have before we're saved, you wouldn't come to him either. Okay, so don't ever get it twisted and put God as the one who is responsible for people not coming. They're not coming. Okay, and we're going to see that later, hopefully, if we get to it. So that's the deal. A hardening has come upon Israel. God let them go their own way. But notice, it's only for a time. Until what? Did you catch it? Till the full number of the Gentiles come in. And what that says to us is God has a prescribed amount and people who are going to believe. And once that amount and exact amount, as soon as the full number of the Gentiles come in, and only God knows who that is and when that is, then the hardening is going to be lifted, and there is going to be a mass conversion of Jewish people. Okay, there's going to be a mass, yeah.
But all the Jewish people that died since then that had their hearts hardened, are they in hell?
Yes.
Here's,
well, see what you're doing is you're putting the blame on God, though. What Pat just said was, are all those Jewish people in hell who didn't believe in Jesus? The answer is yes. Everybody who doesn't believe in Jesus.
But they started up believing anyway, so he hardened their hearts.
Well, see, what you got to say is this, though. Okay, let me explain that again. When we talk about God hardening somebody's heart, there is two ways that he can do that. Okay? Just like when any calamity is the case, when any sort of what we would call evil, okay, there's two ways. There is a primary cause and there is a secondary cause. Okay? When God hardens people's heart, he's not the primary cause of their hardness. They are the primary cause. The secondary cause is God by him letting them go their own way. They're the ones not believing, and they're the ones who stay in unbelief. And so they are the ones who, otherwise, all the passages where Jesus says, I've longed to gather you, but you will not come. John chapter 5, where he says, you will not believe. There's tons of passages that it's man's responsibility and he is not believing. If that was not the case, then how could those passages be true? They have to be true. And so the idea, in fact, here, let's just go to Romans 1 again.